Hey everybody, thanks for coming out. Like I told you, my name is Dean May, and I just wanted to have a conversation with you today about what we're doing at GSK to really transform healthcare. Some of this might ring, some bells with people that are already in regulated industries or just industries that are trying to transform. Some of you may be a little bit behind us, some of you may be ahead of us, but I'll just tell you a story and see if any of it resonates. So first I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself. My name is Dean May. There's an O in front of my name, but only my mom and dad call me Odean. So I was born in Jamaica, and interestingly enough, I lived many years without access to a computer. I think I didn't get a computer until 10th grade or something like that. And we had a little typewriter before that, and I was always super excited about the opportunities that computers, the internet, and just digital could provide to enhance our lives. I did a little bit of tech entrepreneuring. Closer to the end of college, I had a company called Jamity, and we did social media aggregation. And that was really cool at the time. They have a million companies doing it now. But what I was doing there was pulling analytics, understanding, if this person follows your brand and they go and talk about your brand on their page, then probably they're an advocate and you could probably sell a product to them or through them. And that was the basis of that company there. From there, I moved on to Capital One. So I started building platforms at Capital One, Dev Exchange. You can see some of those solutions that we did there in the entire platform infrastructure at developer.capitalone.com. And I did that for about 5 years, learned a lot of lessons. We were very aggressive in building out a platform and enabling fintech through platform technology. And then I moved on to GSK, where I am now, trying to impact the lives of patients everywhere, giving them an experience that could change their lives. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We got an intimate crowd, so I'll go through this, and then if you have any questions, strategic or tactical, we could talk about it from the high level to the low level. I'm prepared. All right, sound good? All right. So transformation, I think everybody uses this term, right? Sometimes it seems a bit buzzwordy, and I've often spent some time figuring out what does this mean actually. And Martin Fowler, everyone familiar with Martin Fowler, he's a technology guru. He said something interesting. He said the transformational projects are really the ones that cause job descriptions to change. And I thought that was interesting. If you're really transforming, you're changing not just the technology, but you're changing the experience of the workforce as well. And in our case, in healthcare, it's this workforce that's going to provide the solutions of today and the solutions of tomorrow, right? One of the things that we wanted to focus on as we wanted to transform was reimagining what our customer experiences would be like, right? And when I first thought about this, I thought about the work that we're doing from a tactical level, and I said, hey, we're doing a lot of automation. I'll show you some of that here. But is it really automation that we're focused on, or are we just really thinking about changing these experiences? And I think reimagining is probably a better term for what we're trying to get to, leveraging automation and those capabilities, right? And we're doing this in a very regulated space, as you could imagine. Healthcare is as regulated as it gets. We deal with financial regulation. We deal with all the HIPAA compliance regulation. We also run manufacturing facilities, and we deal with the regulation around good manufacturing practices and so forth. So in every facet of the business, we have to think about that as we try to build the solutions. So, I said a little bit yesterday in the keynote where I would like us to be, and the place where I see us going is a connected healthcare fabric in which, think about it, you're at the doctor, maybe there's some pre-information that could be pulled from your Fitbit, all of these connected devices that you're already wearing, that allows your doctor to probably give you a better diagnosis than in the absence of that information. How could we impact things like clinical trials, right, where we're testing out new drugs and we're seeing what works if we have actual patient data, and maybe we could get some personalized drugs and things out to you and get the solutions more quickly to the market. What we wanted to do was create a platform ecosystem, right? Develop a community around it. So the community is the people. We'll talk a little bit about that here today. And then we also wanted to wrap that in our compliance thinking, right? So I got to GSK about a year and a half ago, and I started taking assessment of the landscape, right? What was there? I found some custom APIs, some SFTP going on, some SOAP services. Anybody got any SOAP services going on? Only two, come on, you guys got the SOAP service. Yeah, there we go. All right, we had some of that going on, right? We have everything, right? We have some single-use integrations, right? How are we integrating this one data set with this big pharmacy customer over here, pharmacy partner, right? We have two pharmacies with two different integration patterns going on, single use, right? So not only are we not able to share the data across those connections and really understand the insights, we spent double the effort, right? So I started looking at that and thinking about, well, what could we do here, right? We also couldn't discover any new capabilities. We had no such mechanism, right? Where would you go if you wanted to understand that we have an integration at, exposed as a particular data set? There is no place you could go. So we started tackling that. What we did was we started to build custom APIs. We started to look at how we could proxy some of these services, the services that we could not transform. These SOAP services, we built proxies in front of those services, and we exposed those as custom REST APIs, right? We also took the REST APIs we already had, and we pulled them together after we did this assessment, and we introduced the Kong API gateway, right? So now what happened as a result was we had a common, from a technical perspective, a common authentication pattern to get in, an access point to get into our core services. This was huge. This was huge for us because we ran into issues. I visit the manufacturing sites where they're doing technology there and trying to leverage capabilities, and they're saying, hey, for every one of these single-use services, I have to open a firewall hole, right, to gain access. And this was something they were doing repeatedly and was causing a slowdown in the value delivery of those teams. But now with the single front door, that API gateway, we were able to open the firewall one time, right, to this one host port endpoint, and now we have access, right? So one thing got solved there. But what the problem that we had still at this point was these were still sort of one-off APIs, still a little bit, fit for purpose in a way, right? But not scalable, right? So we started looking at how we could go even further than this. And this is pretty much where we are today. And we spend a bit of time stepping back and looking at the business, right? How could we represent the business through these technology endpoints? What do people do for work? And how could we expose that work and expose access to the work of particular departments and groups through APIs? So we started that work. We did this with our facilities management folks. We did this with our vaccines business. We did this in our supply chain. And we started taking these fit-for-purpose APIs and grouping them and really understanding the value that these APIs could provide in groups. We stopped, it was around this time that we stopped thinking from a platform perspective and started thinking from an ecosystem of solutions perspective. What are these groups of things and what problems can they solve for the business? And that's when it really started taking off for us. Because before, everyone is asking, well, I see what you're doing, it's very technical, right? But what does this do for us? And we started selling these solutions to the business. Hey, You've been talking to these supply chain folks and you want to integrate here, you want to integrate the business together. Well, we'll be able to enable that for you very quickly if you decide to accelerate that. And so we were starting to use our solution capabilities to move these things forward. Then we did something interesting. We started trying to add some various APIs into the ecosystem that we thought would be transformational, right? Things that weren't necessarily business APIs, but things that we knew could take us to the next level. How are people doing their work, right, in the business? I remember going down to a vaccines manufacturing plant in Belgium, and I saw some folks in there. They have their hands in these big glove things, and they're doing work that's way above my pay grade, right? Making solutions for people. And I realized they have to stop what they're doing when they get some insights and start writing down these results. And I thought, what kind of a workflow is that, right? You stop your process, the value process, to write something down. And when you've written it down, how is that integrated down the chain, right? Now you have to wait until that person's done researching and writing down to take their notepad or something to that effect and then do your work. If this was digitized or we had some type of digital workflow, we could probably have two people working at the same time, right? Data's coming in real time. I'm getting that data. I'm processing it. And now we're moving at a more quicker pace. So I'm going to show you a few things we did with some of these APIs, conversation and translation, right? Because it really starts with transforming the business internally and transforming these work processes. So I'll show you a simple one here. This is a help library that we have within our company, right? And what we were doing with these articles here, we were paying for each article to be translated, right? At cost. I think it was 105 pounds. My company is a British company, so we measure in pounds. And it was 105 pounds per article, per language, right? And this is for help to do everything, right? How do I expense this? How do I do that? So not only do I have to go look up an article, just to work to get this article there, we had an entire machine to manufacture articles. What we did was we introduced a translation API, right? That could in real time translate these articles as they come in real time. That had a twofold value realization for us. The first thing was folks were now able to cut down the call center, the ultimate call center cost that would happen as someone would ditch the article and just start calling someone, say, hey, I need help, right? And then it also streamlined this workflow so that we could now have the translations live, ready to go at the fingertips and get people moving more quickly. We introduced a conversation API as well. This one, we had a ton of savings here. When I got to the company a year and a half ago, we were spending 75,000 pounds, sometimes 100,000 pounds with some of our technical partners to build these bespoke chat applications, right? What we did was we took the engine of a chat application and we abstracted that out into the conversation API, and we made it ready and available. And what that did was it grew an ecosystem of applications that could sit on top of this reusable capability. Then we were able to, from an ecosystem, a technical ecosystem perspective, we were able to plug this in with some of the other capabilities we had. Anyone at the keynote yesterday when I talked about the search API? So now we took the conversation API where I can talk. It's really Alexa under the covers. IBM Watson under the covers, sorry, right? We took that, we aggregated some information, put some GSK love on top of it. But then what we did was we plugged that into our search API, the one I told you about yesterday. So now we could have conversations where you're putting in these dialogues, right? I can write dialogues, and similar to writing a help article. But what happens if we can't write the dialogue? We could leverage the search engine, right? That's searching, hundreds and hundreds of terabytes daily of GSK data and find the best fit answer to a question, right? So the business came to us and said, hey, I see what you're doing with these chat applications, but what could we do with voice? And one of the engineers went home for a weekend, just for 2 days, and leveraging the capabilities we already had, they were able to do something a little bit like this.
So, open conversation gateway.
Skynet activated. Ask away.
Does the conversation gateway support Alexa?
Yes, Conversation Gateway now supports Alexa. If you need an Alexa skill talking to your Watson dialogues, Conversation Gateway makes it possible in just a few minutes.
Now I'm going to stop there. That was huge for us. That was huge for us. When the business asked for solutions, in the past, they were expecting 6 months, right? Can we get with one of our technical partners, use the systems that you have, and maybe in 6 months we could have something? We said, sure, 6 months. We reached back out to them, set up a meeting that Monday. They talked to us on Thursday. We talked back to them on Monday. We said, we're ready, right? And that's the speed that we want to have. That's how we want to send a message to our business that, hey, we are ready to accelerate if you're ready to step on the gas, right? So then, now that you see how we kind of got the ecosystem going a little bit, that's from a technical perspective. But where you win or fail, as everyone in here should know, is with your people, your community, right? Are you building a community around this? So we looked at that as well, simultaneously. So I'm going to show you our developer portal here that we created in a few slides down. But I want to talk about what we were trying to achieve. We wanted to democratize this ecosystem. We wanted to give the power back. Our business units have tech teams, and we wanted to be those enablers that allowed them to build and contribute into this ecosystem. We didn't want to be the bottleneck. You shouldn't have to come to us every time you need a chat app. We want to create everything such that you can quickly put these things together and make something. I go to Home Depot, hardware store, every weekend, project guy, right? And I want to be able to grab the things needed to make a shed, right? I don't want to have to think about it. I want everything is going to make that happen quickly for me because I need to finish this in one day and go back to work on Monday. So we thought a lot about that. I'll show you our portal here.
As a key part of the strategy to future-proof our tech, we have created a platform for reusable services and components for everyone at GSK. Introducing the GSK Developer Portal. GSK Developer Portal offers users a frictionless experience by allowing them to provision, control, and monitor underlying platforms, such as the API Gateway. This is the Developer Portal today. Users can browse the product catalog, which contains APIs created by the developer community. You can connect those APIs to a project and set permissions for those projects by inviting your team members. All of this happens while silently provisioning your projects with OAuth, Client ID, API key, and secret authentications. Users can also promote projects to QA and then to prod. Approvers can see the business purpose and description before allowing projects to reach production. Users will also be able to publish APIs that are already registered in the gateway. In our next release, users will be able to publish mobile and web components, bots, and GitHub repos. The GSK Developer Portal, available now.
So the business went crazy, right? Because now, again, we're enabling. Now, you saw something there that was, I thought, should be interesting to you. You saw that we started thinking past just the APIs, right? How could we, the example I gave earlier was about a hardware store, right? Finishing a project in one weekend, right? If we know you're going to need some UI front-end components, right? If we know the things that you want to make already, could we have that stuff stacked and ready, right? Could we have CI/CD pipelines ready to create a hello world application built from, reusable components already plugged into the API ecosystem, right, ready to go, so that now you're able to build these applications more quickly and solve these business problems and customer experiences more quickly. That's what we were looking at. You also saw some stuff there about compliance, right? Start under the covers. That system abstracts away the workflows that we use to notify all the stakeholders in a particular chain, right? Because we are in a regulated industry that we're ready to move something to production, right? Someone has requested access to this API or capability, and we need to notify 3 people who, in our case, will be definitely globally distributed, right, across the globe, get their sign-offs, get their response, and get the access to the people that need to get these solutions out. So I'll show you a few of these workflows here. This one is on the access request side. And so what would happen when someone clicks, give me access to this. I've discovered this. I like it. I want to use it. I can identify who, created this or who's contributing to this, but I now want to access this. So first we notify tech. We notify compliance, and we wait for the approvals to come back, right? On the tech side, you'll probably be looking at architecturally, can this API support, the traffic? What type of traffic are we going to get on this thing, right? Who's already using it? What is the risk profile of this application that wants to use this API? And does the API have a similar or matching risk profile? Meanwhile, compliance would be looking at, what team is accessing this? What data is this? We deal with a lot of data sovereignty issues as well. We have data that can't leave the country in which it originated, right? So the risk and legal team would be looking at that simultaneously. They would automatically give their sign-offs, and you would return to the portal. You would see that, hey, I'm approved for access. Boom, I'm ready to go. On the other side, we have a workflow that enables contributing to this ecosystem with built-in automation CI/CD pipelines, right? So we're able to run automated testing on whatever capability you're pushing into the ecosystem, whether it be an API. We have a standard library of tools that can automate those tests for us. We also do security scanning and all the things you would expect in a full-featured CI/CD pipeline, as well as the workflow capability that we talked about. Everything checks out. It gets pushed into the ecosystem for access by people in the community. So I'll stop there. I wanted to save a few minutes for any questions. Like I said, strategic or tactical, but that's pretty much what I had today.